So Archie Sharp has done an interview with BT Sport Boxing on their YouTube channel this week, in which he's declared his ambitions to fight the winner of the WBO Super Featherweight title fight between Jamel Herring and Carl Frampton, which will take place in Dubai in April. He's also mentioned that he'd be willing to end the hype of Shakur Stevenson, as well as discussing his move to the Ibox gym and Alan Smith, talking about not being motivated for fights that are not stimulating to him, among other things. Now, I don't want to keep this video too long. Just want to say I'm an Archie Sharp fan. Have been for quite some time. I like him as a boxer. Seems a good lad. South London boy like myself. So, you're going to tend to sort of, have a certain type of fanship, I suppose. You're going to be more invested in that type of, that person, that character, especially if someone you can relate to. Now, I like Archie, but he's been off the ball for quite some time since the Leon Woodstock fight. He's been a 5-year pro, no real notable names, never been 12 rounds, and the quality of opposition I haven't been overly happy with of late. And I can understand in some regards that maybe he's been looking for bigger fights and they haven't come, and he's been a little bit fed up with things. But his performances as a man in his mid-20s have got to be better. Now he's made that move to Allen. I think he's one of the most underrated trainers in British boxing right now. Whether people agree with me or not, I think he is. But for me, I'm really concerned about our young prospects saying things like, and contenders now. He's fighting for titles. He wants to be up there at the top, but has he done enough to even bridge the gap? See, for me, we've got fighters in this country that seem to want to jump from WBO European title fights to world honours. They haven't even done the British, Commonwealth, and European route, and that concerns me massively. It seems to me that the WBO European is the promoters and the fighters are trying to push this narrative of, oh, it's a European title, and it's like, well, it's a European title in name, but it's not in reality. I've seen a documentary recently where Stephen Ward was, it said former light heavyweight European champion. It's like, I like Stephen Ward. But come on, be real. That's not the case. He was never the European champion. He was the WBO European champion. They just happened to leave that off. Now, I remember back in the day when Belcastro was a champion. I remember watching Richie Wenton getting cut to pieces fighting for that title. I remember Jason Booth fighting Makhmutov for the belt and losing. I remember Sergey Devikov coming over and fighting Spencer Oliver, and we know what happened there that night. And then Michael Brody destroying him in a fight in this country. The European titles had many good champions, solid champions, and I'm not just talking about European, I'm talking about British and Commonwealth. The Commonwealth's been devalued over the last probably 10, 15 years, I think. We've seen fights, Nigel Ben Anthony Logan, we've seen that. And then, I remember when the secret Richard Williams was fighting good quality opposition. Shannon Taylor, people like that over here, Commonwealth title. Now it's gone to the point where it's almost sometimes at the level of an English title fight. Some of the guys that have come over of late, over the last 10, 15 years, especially from Africa, have not been good enough on the Friday fight nights. But for me, our guys are not bridging the gap, and that's a concern for me. Archie's a talented lad, and I think he can get there with the right movement, the right coaching, and the right matchmaking. It's all about timing in this game. It's all about timing. But for me, how do you go from fighting Jeff Ofori, winning by a round, and then going to fight Shakur Stevenson or the winner of the Carl Frampton fight? Let's get some fights and bridge the gap. To me, I think there's a big problem in British boxing because of the monopolisation of channels and things like that. And then you've got the great divide, and they're not really working with each other. Belts, they're not really willing to engage. So these fights are not coming off. So they're trying to keep it in-house, and they're trying to work and get the fights for the fighters. But when you're only working in a certain circuit, resources become limited. It's a concern because our guys are then going to go to world level. It's okay being able to win a fight, but then you've got to be able to stay there. Are our guys going to be able to get to this level and have the ability and the skill level to deal with different styles? That's a problem. We've seen of late fighters coming over from abroad and smashing our guys to bits. We haven't had enough champions who have held the title for long enough. And that's my concern. You look at the guys that have gone before, Lennox Lewis fought for the British title. Joe Calzaghe fought for the British title. And then you look at Carl Froch. He went through that. He went the old school way. Commonwealth, British, European. You got Randolph Turpin, European. Ricky Hatton did it the same way. British title. Remember the fight against Faxton. Coming through adversity. Naz, European title. The list goes on. Our best fighters from this country have all done it that way. The domestic way or the European way. It seems to be this almighty rush to get to the top without putting the groundwork in. All these trinket belts, a lot of them are 10 rounders, some 12, but then it's the opposition. You look at Selby, you look at Warrington, you look at Frampton, guys that are not being lineal champions. Or Ring Magazine, whatever you want to, or number one, however you want to call it. But the fact is, they've even done their apprenticeship. They've done the British, the Commonwealth, the European, or all three. For me, to hear a young fighter say, I couldn't get up for the fight. I can't get up for these fights. When you haven't actually done anything as a pro yet, domestically or on the continent, I just don't get that. Unless you are a top, and there are a lot of these guys going about their amateur background, but the fact of the matter is even the Team GB guys have been exposed. And they've had elite level experience. But even then, those guys will be exposed to top level sparring as an amateur and then with the money that's put into them as a pro. But some of these guys are, to me, in this current climate, surely it's the right thing to do is to get in the ring and do the rounds. The more you're in the ring, the better you're going to get. The more experience you get. The championship rounds. It makes sense. To have the gut checks, to face different styles, to be in different scenery, to be in places of the enemy territory, whatever you want to call it. I know sometimes you get lads who have boxed abroad as an amateur. It's a totally different ball game as a pro. In a bear pit environment, against all odds. I remember Lenny Dawes talking about how the Italians, what they were doing, the little skullduggery against Di Rocco. Little things like that. You've got to prepare yourself before you get in against the Americans. We hear the stuff that goes on in America, with in terms of the corners not being able to get close to the ring and things like that. Even your coaches need that experience. I feel like some of these lads have been promised good fights, good quality fights, and that might be a reason why they struggle to get motivated. And I do understand that. But when you're only fighting once or twice a year, my word, if you can't get up for that, then as a pro, there's a problem, But I think also people try and compare us and, well, the Americans don't do it. The Americans don't do it. They have just the NABF. But people forget America's a huge country. They have massive amounts of sparring on offer to them, different styles, East Coast, West Coast. It's different. The environment's different. And that's a big reason why they flourish. In my opinion, Archie is a talent. But talent isn't enough. You've got to apply yourself. And I feel him with Alan Smith at the Ibox, I think he's more with a good enough trainer to take him to the next level. I think he's a good fighter. Assess him in 2 to 4 fights and then go from there. I want to see our fighters like Archie be equipped fully so that not only they can win a world title, but they can stay there. That's my thing. 2 to 4 fights, assess it from there. And look, this isn't a rant against Archie Sharp. This is a rant against our domestic fighters trying to progress themselves too quickly. Slow down. Do it the right way. Look at the evidence. The proof is in the pudding. But anyway, guys, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. And let me know your thoughts on what I've mentioned about the apprenticeship and whether our guys are doing it the right way and how you would progress a fighter, a domestic level fighter, through to world ranks. I can only think of Reid as one that's gone from just fighting journeyman through to winning world titles.